Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. We're going to head on out to Gulfstream Park, check out some Florida Breds for the Wednesday race of the day. Remember, when it's the race of the day, you can get free Daily Racing Form past performances on the website, DRF.com. David, as we look at this one for race 8, on Wednesday at Gulfstream Park, 7 furlongs is the distance. Florida Breds here, first level allowance. Beastly Speed from the inside, probably the one that the race goes through because he's the most proven speed, although he is cutting back from races going a mile, and some of these are stretching out from sprint races. So it'll be interesting to see where the speeds all meet together, but there's really not a lot of proven front runners in here besides Beastly Speed.
Yeah, it's an interesting group. We've got a few horses in for that $20,000 optional tag. Others are racing for this first level allowance condition for the Florida Breds. One of those in for the allowance condition is that morning line favorite, the number 1 Beastly Speed. And he has lost at short prices at this level a few times already through his recent starts. But as you were kind of hinting at, his tactical advantage, as we'll see on the Timeform US pace projector, is probably what's going to lead him to favoritism in this spot.
Let's take a look at that pace projector right here, and it does favor the front runners. Not surprising to see because most of these horses have come from off the pace, mid-pack runners, and with the inside draw, you probably imagine they'll try to get aggressive. Luis Saez, aggressive rider aboard, and hold that position. But you also pointed out 3 times in a row been the beaten or 2 out of the last 3 times been the beaten favorite, and then another time at 5-2, burning money at a short price.
Yeah, you worry about that a little bit when these horses go off at short prices consistently and just rack up the losses. That's always a knock against horses like Beastly Speed. But you look at this Timeform US pace projector, he's shown on a clear early lead with that favors front runner scenario. And you check out the 3 horses that are shown right behind him on the pace projector, Roar Ready, Impromptu, and then on the outside, Call the Cavalry. And none of those are really front-running types. They all are horses that want to take a hold early and rate just off the speed. So it does kind of look like Beastly Speed is going to have things his own way up front. We'll see if that leads to a victory.
Well, we'll start with Beastly Speed, who we've been talking about already, and this was his most recent race. It was fast early, was in between horses, was up to lead and cleared off, but got challenged at the top of the lane. He did hold second, and that was at this very level. It was his first start in a couple months. Horse who won that race, Awesome Train, came back, was 5th in the Sunshine Classic over the weekend. So with the inside draw and the cutback, it looks like one of the top contenders in here, probably the one they'll all have to run down.
Yeah, his 81 buyer in this race was the best of his last 3 starts. When you said he was all short prices, I kind of felt like that was maybe his most disgraceful victory of all, because he got to the front end, set fractions that should have been comfortable for him, and he still got run down at the end. The winner, Awesome Train, is okay. He was 5th in the Sunshine Classic last week. This horse is cutting back now to the 7 furlongs. We talked about the pace projector. He's supposed to be alone up front from this inside post. As you said, Luis Saez, an aggressive rider. And I just feel like this slight cutback could work for him. And when I go back to look at a couple of his other races recently, I can excuse the sloppy track performance. It did not look like he handled that surface at all. 2 back and 3 back, he actually ran deceptively well because he got a real challenge in the early stages, an extremely fast second quarter that day, and he paid the price late. So I think overall his form is good, and he's likely to get the right trip.
Roar Ready, the number 2, is 0 for the last 10. His last 2 dirt tries, though, were in open, kind of pretty tough spots. So he'll return to the dirt again in maybe a more logical spot here where he gets to be back in with Florida Breds. He got bumped at the start, was 4 lengths off. Kind of just ran around the track most recently last time out, but that was back in November, a couple months off. What are your thoughts on Roar Ready?
Yeah, he's got that 84 buyer going this distance at this level all the way back in May of 2024. And since then, he's not really run back to that kind of performance, especially through his dirt races. I agree with you. This is a drop in class from last time. He's coming off a bit of a layoff here, but he's another one that doesn't have a whole lot of early speed. I think it was actually shown kind of close up on the pace projector, but that speaks to how little speed is in this race.
Yeah, he's been at this level for quite some time, too. The number 3, Impromptu, has not raced since June, but the overall form, not bad. And most recently, the last 5 races, they're all top 3 finishes, including second beaten a nose in the Hutchinson. Was able to finish in front of a horse who came back to win the Illinois Derby. So there is some form that's pretty good. The problem is, David, that form was back in June. So now we're dealing with the 7-month layoff here.
Yeah, and you worry a little bit about him being in for the $20,000 tag off this layoff. I get that he's not eligible for the first level allowance condition because he's already cleared that for the Florida Breds, but They're bypassing an open company allowance race that I think was even carded this week he might have been eligible for to run here, risking him for the $20,000 tag, even though he's a horse that just 3 starts ago barely lost a stakes race. And then you look at the stats for trainer Antonio Sano, 6-month to 12-month layoffs over the past 5 years. He's just 1 for 30 if you look up that stat in Formulator. So not the best signs around this horse in Impromptu.
Also looks like a little bit of a gap in the works between December 13th and January the 4th. So I like horses off a longer layoff coming in with a little bit better, maybe stronger work patterns than we see here. Let's move to the 4 WW Candy. Dave, this one's 0 for the last 12, but those are all against tougher and against open company. The last win was actually a stakes win back at Hawthorne in 2023. And honestly, I mean, you look at some of the horses in the running lines here, horses like Mulligan, who's a grade 1 winner, and WW Candy was second, only beaten a couple lengths to that one. Prior to that, lost to a horse named WW Hutchinson, who's a 15-time winner. So the form is much better, and he's faced a lot tougher. But a couple of knocks are, one, doesn't win a whole lot recently, and there's a voided claim the last time we saw this horse, and another drop in class, and not a whole lot of speed. So just a lot of mixed feelings on WW Candy in here.
Yeah, it just feels like this horse, while I agree with you that he's faced some of the best company, has the best overall form, there are some real red flags here. I mean, they claimed this horse for $80,000 in June of last year. Mike Maker and the connections really have gotten very little in ways of purse money with him. I mean, he's hit the board once in his last 3 starts. That was that $40,000 claiming race. And now they're just willing to cut ties, drop him in for the $20,000 tag. He's got these series of works that just say, claim me, coming into this race, some fast drills. And, it looks like they're just trying to unload this horse, maybe making the assessment that there just isn't much upside here with this 8-year-old. And then, the biggest nail in the coffin for WW Candy is that he just has no early speed whatsoever, and that's not going to work in a race like this.
Next one up is Yorkville, who had spent the first 30 starts of his career all on the synthetic. And then in start number 31, he steps foot on the dirt for the first time against a lot softer group, 8,000 restricted claimers, and he got the job done that day. Can he parlay it right back and pick up 2 victories in a row on the dirt here, David?
It's going to be a heavy lift for him because coming out of that cheap claiming race last time where he did get the job done and win at a big price, you look at the field and why he was such a big price in there. There were a couple of Safi Joseph dropdowns in that race who looked a little untrustworthy coming in. It kind of felt like one of them had to win the race by default. Neither one really showed up with their best effort. The runner-up did perform better than the odds-on stablemate that day, but it kind of left the door open for a horse like this to win the race. He's stepping up against way tougher company here.
Next one is the number 6, Belson Brooks, who has pretty good recent form right now. Honestly, if you can eliminate that sloppy track race back in October, you're left with a really solid string of efforts for a horse who genuinely shows up each and every time. When we're talking about speed figures, David, his 80 Beyer speed figure top is a little below some of the top contenders in here. But I think the counterpoint would be he actually has defeated Beastly Speed. And he's been in front of some pretty sharp horses. In that very same race, he beat a horse named Morgan Point, who you see in other horses running lines, and then who went on to win 3 consecutive races. So I went back and forth a little bit with him. I think he fits pretty well, though, and should offer you a little bit of value. Things will just probably have to play out perfectly for him to win.
Yeah, really the only knock that I have against Belson Brooks is that I kind of get the sense that he's already reached his ceiling. I mean, this was a horse that was competing in 6,250 claiming races, not that long ago, and has done well moving up to this level. He's been big prices in a number of those starts and has certainly outrun his odds a few times coming into this race without winning. Just feels like maybe those minor awards were the best that he was able to achieve at the time. But that said, as you were alluding to, he's not going to be the short price that some others with very similar credentials coming in will be. And he just tries really hard when you watch his races. He's not the biggest horse by any means, but he hangs in there until the end. So maybe he'll outrun his odds again.
One of the tougher reads for me in this race was Raging Fury, next one up, who was 4th in a common race with some of these rivals here, was 4th behind Beastly Speed. Belson Brooks was 3rd that day. So the last couple races coming off the big victory, maybe a little bit disappointed. 2 starts back, lost to Secret Chat, who came out of that race to win, but hasn't been able to kind of get back to that really big performance a few starts back. Where do you stack Raging Fury with this group?
I think he's generally been in pretty good form coming in here. He was explosive when he won that race 3 back against a slightly weaker, a $30,000 condition claiming race. And his 2 starts since getting picked up by the Nolan Ramsey barn, he hasn't won either of them, but I think he's run pretty well each time. 2 back, he made a big premature move to take the race over around the far turn before paying the price for that late when beaten by Secret Chad. And last time, it felt like Irad Ortiz almost got caught off guard by the winner moving to his outside past half-mile pole, because this horse was actually traveling really well up close to the pace, and then just kind of suddenly he lost position and was behind the 8 ball and then had to come on again at the very end. I think he's going to have a better opportunity to make that one run from his outside post here. The big knock against him is he's consistently had trouble getting out of the gate, and that concerns me in a race that doesn't have a whole lot of pace.
And to round out the field, Call the Calvary is a horse who was a debut winner back in June of 2023. So got to feel positive about that after the win first time out of the box. They stepped the horse up right into the grade 3 Sanford. It was only 5-1 against Graded Stakes Company in his second start. But then we don't see him till April of 2024 to this year, and then till last year, and then another long layoff. So long layoff race, another long layoff, David. Now you get the move back in with Florida breds. Just a really difficult read on a horse like this who just doesn't have great overall form and only a couple races.
Yeah, he is the total wild card in this race. We'll see what price he is. This would have been a tough one to make a morning line for. I mean, 15-1 maybe seems high. This is the kind of horse that feels like sometimes gets some steam coming into races like this because he's just a total unknown. He has to get a lot faster, obviously. But, I mean, his one good effort sprinting as a 2-year-old was in June of 2023. So, I mean, he could have improved a lot with natural maturity during all the time away. He spent so much time on the shelf. It's just he would have to take that big step forward for connections that tend to take some money. I will say I watched his last workout. It was in company with Mystic Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner, but he was just a target for that foe. It was no match for Mystic Dan, who didn't even run well in his last start.
Well, let's finish up this race and take a look at the selections. David, who are you going to end up on here?
I'm going to eat the chalk here. The number 1, Beastly Speed. This is not the kind of horse I usually take because he's so moto, but it just feels like he's supposed to get the right trip from the inside, setting the pace, and hopefully he delivers on his likely short odds once again.
I think he's the one to catch and beat. I'll use a horse on top who could offer some value and may be close enough to just kind of keep grinding and get the job done. That's the 6 Belson Brooks. So 6-1-3-4 for me, 1-7-6-4 for David. However you're playing them on the Wednesday race of the day, we wish you the best of luck.